I'm recording, so that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Now, the topics which are left are generators, decorators, IT tools, crawlers, and the introduction to classes. Okay. Functional programming have we all discussed?
Yeah, even we have discussed generator settings last class.
Okay,
Hello.
Rupesh, what about you?
Yeah. Functional programming, iter tools, that's what you have. Lambda iter tools was there. That's what you have discussed.
Lambda and all we have discussed, right?
Yes, Lambda is discussed.
IT tools
Uh,
is also done.
yes, yes, iter tools is discussed.
Okay, okay. So this is left then.
Okay.
For Gopi, I think for you also IT tools is done.
Yeah, it's finished now. The tools are finished.
Okay, and for you generators are also done, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
What
Only
about
that last classes and last part is pending. I think so. Only the
okay? What?
classes part.
Okay, okay, okay. What about you, Rupesh? Your decorators, generators, and web crawlers are left, right?
Web crawlers, you just have given introduction about it. One demo you have shown how to get the anchor tags on a
Yeah, yeah,
page.
yeah, yeah. So that was what we covered in web crawlers. Rest everything. So this is
Yes.
this is supposed to be an fast track course, right? So then web crawlers is also done.
Okay.
Okay. What about generators, decorators?
No, no, it was not done.
Okay. So let's start with classes. So there's because Gopi has already finished decorators and generators. So I'll start with classes so that once this is done, he can if he wishes he can use.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah,
No, no,
hello.
no. I think there is internet instability is there.
Yeah, yeah,
Can
yeah.
you
Please, yeah, yeah. I'll mute all of you now. Yeah. Okay. So let's
yeah.
start with classes. So
Okay, ma'am.
yeah,
One minute. Can you record from your side, ma'am?
yeah,
I
I'm
think
recording.
some. Okay, okay. Because it needs to be transferred to some other, right?
Yeah, yeah, I am recording.
Mhm.
Now, we are starting with classes. So basically, um, what are classes? What do you know by classes? So classes, but if we talk about the definition, it's actually a blueprint or an idea of
Okay.
an object. But if we talk
Okay.
about the concept of it, so it's basically a combination of different variables and functions.
Okay.
Taking an example, if I take human being as a class, okay, then how do you
Okay.
distinguish or how do you characterize a person or how do you characterize an entity to be a human being? By the functions it performs, right? Humans can sleep,
Okay.
walk, talk. These are some
Uh-huh.
functionalities. So similarly in classes also, we have certain functionalities which
Okay.
together forms an entity.
Okay.
Okay, to give an example, let's say I have this class bank. Okay, so we write class followed by the name of the class and colon. Now inside this, let's say I have two functions, deposit and withdraw.
Okay.
Okay, so I cannot just open a shop and say this is a bank. There are certain functionalities that I have to perform in order to make it a bank, right? Like deposit and
Okay.
withdraw. Now, for now,
Mm.
just remember this that all the functions inside a class have the self as a parameter. What is self? We'll
Okay.
come to that later on.
Mm.
Okay, now let's see some withdraw function also. Now, if I try to access this function outside, it will throw me an error. Okay, so the functions present
Okay.
inside the class cannot be directly accessed. In order to access it, you have to create objects of this bank class.
Okay.
Okay, how do you create objects using constructors? There are two types of constructors: default and user defined. Let's see what are default constructors. So default constructors, basically first you will declare an object. It is just a variable, so you can name it anything. The name of the class followed by empty brackets. So this is how you create an object using constructor. Now this is an object of this class bank. Now, if I have to use these functions deposit and withdraw, all I have to do is object dot the function name. Okay, now it's executing. Now, if you notice, there is a parameter over here, but I'm not passing any argument, and still it is running. It's not throwing me an error. That's because the self is not like a normal parameter. It has a different functionality which we'll cover in a while. It's not like a normal parameter. Okay. So like this, you can call any function present inside the class object name dot the function name.
Okay.
Now we already have a default constructor. Then why do we need a user-defined constructor? So we need a user-defined constructor in places where we need certain information from the object. Okay. Like let's say this Declabs is a class. The functionalities that we offer or the functions that we have inside this class are training, consulting, and so on. So who are the objects for this class? Everybody who comes for a training is an object. Now, in order to provide them access to the functionalities, like that means in order to allow them the access for the training classes or for consultancy, we need certain information from them, like information such as which course are you here for? Unless and until I know which course the person is here for, how am I going to give him training, right? There are some mandatory information that you might need from the object, and that cannot be, and that has to be taken while you're creating the object. Okay, so it cannot be done in case of default constructor. For that, you need a user-defined constructor. So let's see, how do we create a user-defined constructor? So inside the class, you will create a function. Okay. Now this is a built-in function, double underscore init double underscore. Okay. This function is used to create objects. Okay. Underscore in double underscore init double underscore. Okay. Now, inside, again, this is inside a class, so it will have self as a parameter. Now, let's say I need, since this is bank, I might need bank balance, so I'll say balance. I might need account number, so it's account number. Okay, all such attributes that you need from the user or from the object, you have to write here. Okay. Okay, these are known as attributes. Now inside this, I'll do something which might not be clear immediately. I'll explain that in a while. Okay. Now if I execute this, this is going to throw an error. Okay, because the rule says that if you have a user-defined constructor, which is this, then you cannot use a default constructor, which I'm using here. So I have to use a user-defined constructor. How do you use that? The class name, this is not going to change. So all the constructors, default and user-defined, have the same name as that of class. Okay. All you have to do is pass the values to these attributes. So balance, let's say I have 3,000 and account number is some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it's fine. Okay. Now, coming to what this self is, let's create another object. You can create as many objects as you want for a class. Okay. Okay. Now using this object also, I will call this deposit function. Okay. Okay. Now, this self is basically a reference to the object which is calling that function. Okay. Okay. So if I, let's say in deposit function, if I say self.balance, it will print the balance of the object which is calling it. There are multiple objects. Each object has its own balance. If I write self.balance, it is going to say whichever object is calling this function, that object's balance. This is what I mean by this statement. Okay. Okay. Now coming to this init, when I say self.account number is equal to account number, it's basically account number of this object is equal to the account number of whatever is being passed here. Similarly, account number of the object, balance of the object which is getting created is equal to the balance amount which is passed here as an argument.
Okay.
So self is basically a reference to the object which is getting created, or which is not in case of init, the object which is getting created. If we have other functions, it's basically the object which is calling the function. Any confusion?
Yeah. One
Everybody?
particular exam,
Yeah.
any particular application where classes play a major role.
No, everywhere when you write something, see whatever we were doing so far, we were writing different functions separately.
Okay.
Okay. In application level, when you do this, what we don't write separate functions like individual functions here and there. What we do is we create a class. Like for example, I'm creating an application where there is a login functionality. Okay.
Okay.
Now login will have different functions, not just one. One function will be to check whether user is already logged in. Then another function will allow the user to sign in. There will be third function to check whether if he has forgotten a password. Certain functionality. Now instead of writing it
Okay.
individually, what we do on the application level is we put it together in a class.
Okay.
So I'll say something like class login or something, and then declare all the functions inside it. So we are basically structuring everything together.
Okay. But is that application program can have many classes over there? I mean, many classes running. So many different classes of subroutines. Hello.
Yeah,
Actually,
please tell me.
objects will run, not classes will run. Okay. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, I have one doubt.
Uh-huh.
Is there no concept of class level methods? Like everywhere we are using this self, right?
I'm sorry, I
Hello.
did not get you.
Like in Java,
Yeah,
we have static methods, right?
correct.
Which run on class level. Whenever the class is initialized through object, it will run
Okay. No, 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 no.
like that. Hello.
Yeah, yeah. We don't have it. I have it here.
Okay. That's what my doubt. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Gopi, do you have any other questions?
No, ma'am. No. Okay.
Okay, okay. So for you, this was what was left.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything else has been already covered, decorators and generators and everything. Okay.
Okay.
So if you wish to continue, you can, or else you can leave the meeting. It's up to you.
Yeah.
So let's move on to generators. So what are generators? Generators are basically functions which produces or which gives you a generator object. Now generator functions basically what they do is they retain the previous state of an object. Okay, this is by definition. Now let's see how it is done. So I am going to declare a function by naming it my generator. You can name it anything. It's just an identifier. Okay. Here, let's say I'll give the same example. So let's say I is equal to 0 while true. Now here we have something known as yield. Okay. So yield is like a return statement. Just that it's
Okay.
this keyword yield which actually makes the normal function a generator. So now if
Yeah.
I create an object of this, okay, so I'm just creating an object of this function and I say print type of f. It says type generator, right? If I have a normal function, let's see what that will do. So I am going to copy this, paste it here, and instead of yield, I'll just say return I. Okay. Now I'll create some object for this my generator, and then I'll say print type of this. So you will see that this says int because it is storing the value of I, which is an integer. If I change it to, let's say, a string, it says type is string. So this doesn't depend on the function, it depends on what it is returning. Similarly, this generator function here returns a generator type. Okay. Now, what that is, so there's an iterator called next. So if I do f dot next, what happens is this function gets executed. So I is equal to 0 while true, yield I, that means return I. So the value of I is 0, it prints 0, and then the value of I becomes 1. Okay, so let's print again. Usually what happens when you call the same function twice, both the executions are separate. There are two different instances and they will start from the beginning of the function till the end of the function. But here, it remembers where you stopped last time. So when I did f dot next for the first time, the value of I was 1. So
One.
instead of starting from 0, it says return I. The value of I was 1, so it returns 1.
It remembers.
Yes, and then the value of I becomes 2. So the next time I say f dot next, it prints 2. And then the value becomes 3 and so on. Okay, so this is what generator does. It remembers the previous state of an object. If I create a next object like G is equal to my generator, then again it will start from 0 because that's a different object altogether. Okay, so these are mostly used in sequences. Like you have attendance. In your office, you must be having a card swipe machine where you swipe your card every day for attendance. Okay, so this is, you can apply this generator concept over there. So every day you swipe your card, it increments it by 1. So it remembers what was the next value and increments it by 1. For different employee, there will be different objects.
Yeah.
Okay. Rupesh, is it clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so this is the concept of generators. Now let's see what are decorators. So decorators are basically used to restrict the access of a function or a class. So here again, let's say I have a function.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, actually, what's the concept going on?
Yeah,
May I
hi
know?
Venkatesh. We've just started decorators. Okay.
Okay.
So, and we have covered classes and generators because those were the only two topics left. This is the last topic of the course.
Huh?
Okay. For classes and generators, we already have the recording. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Okay. If you have any doubt, you can let us know regarding
Okay.
those topics. Okay.
So, how long it is? It takes 15 minutes or 10? How much
Half an
time?
hour or so.
Half an hour or so. Okay. So, after this session, can it be extended for me?
I'll have to check. I'll have to check once. But for now,
Okay.
let's continue with decorators, and if time permits, I'll see.
Okay.
Okay. So what I was saying was decorators are basically used to restrict the access of a function or a class. Okay. So let's say we have this function which prints something. Now,
Ma'am, can you
yeah.
please repeat from a decorator from beginning itself?
Yeah. This is where we started. That decorators are used to restrict the access of a function or a class.
Restrict the action of a function or a class.
Restrict the access to a function or a class.
Okay.
So let's say we have this function which prints hello, and all I have to do is all I have to do to access it is call this function, right?
Yes.
Every time I call it, it will execute it. Now I want to restrict this access. I don't want everyone to have access to the function. How do I do this? Using decorator. So all I have to do is on top of the function, just add the rate and the name of the decorator. It's a identifier, so you have to follow the same rule that you follow while naming a variable. And before you do that, you should create a function with the same name. Okay, this function takes one argument. And what is the argument that we are passing to this? It's the entire function on top of which you have added this decorator. This entire function goes as an argument to this myDecorator function. Now inside this you have an internal function. Again, you can name it anything. I am naming it internal function. Now let's say I'm printing something here. Okay. So when I execute this, you will see that even though I called this function, instead of directly printing me hello, it actually went up to the decorator just because I had added this here. and this entire function was passed as an argument to my decorator. Now it enters the internal function print before. Then what is this A? This looks like a function call, right? It is actually a function call because what is A here? A is this entire function. So when I say A along with brackets, it's calling this function and thinking hello. And then again execution comes back to this and prints after. So you can see even though I'm calling this, it's not going here directly, it's going through the decorator. But I can still access it, just that the route is different. You can also provide restrictions. So let's say only the people with whose name starts with A should be able to access it. That is my condition. So I'll say if name dot starts with A, then allow it to run this program, otherwise run this function, otherwise don't. So right now if you see, it is executing because it starts with A.
I even can use the normal functions only, right? Like, hello.
Yeah, just 1 minute please.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, it's just a function inside a function. That's it.
No, this is a function inside a function, but this is not the purpose. The purpose is I am restricting the access to this function. So if I, let's say, give some other, it starts with D now. You're not able to access this function even though you're calling it.
Okay, that is just restricting a function is like I define a function. Whenever I need it, I call it. That is how, right?
Yes, but let's say there is a function, okay, and I only want registered users to access it.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Only
so you can
when
check whether that user has a user ID or not. If he has a user ID, allow him to access it. If he doesn't have a user ID, don't allow him to access it. This is just one example. Okay?
yeah.
So this is how we use a decorator.
Okay.
Rupesh, is it clear?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. Actually, one question is, in a decorator,
Yeah, tell me.
actually function inside the function is it looks like function inside the function, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Define my decorator is a function inside another function.
Correct.
As per the rule is a function inside the function is will not support, right?
No, it does. It's just that a function inside a function cannot be accessed directly from outside. So the scope of this internal function lies within the function itself.
Okay.
I cannot call it from outside.
So internal function is it's a calling function is calling, or the function is defined inside the function. We
The function
cannot
is
define.
defined inside the function. We can define, we cannot call it from outside the function.
Actually, the main basic concept is in any programming language, we cannot define function inside the function, but we can call or we can declare the function, right?
No. Here we can define a function inside a function. That is what I'm doing here, right? There's a function inside a function.
Yes. So the Python support a function inside the function. We can define function inside the function.
Yes.
Okay.
You cannot call it from outside. Like this internal function cannot be called outside my decorator.
Okay. So it can be called inside the my decorator.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions related to decorators? Rupesh, is it clear?
Yeah. Understood. Yes.
Okay. So with this, we have finished or covered all the topics that was there for you to move on to your next subject. Okay, so after this session now, you can discuss with Amitesh about your next schedule and everything. And at any point of time, if you have any doubts, you can let me know. Or let Amitesh know, he will convey the message.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Venkatesh, you can stay back, we can discuss few topics.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Ma'am,
Yes,
could
ma'am.
you just send? Could you just send able to send the recording today?
Yeah, I'll send the
My
recording to everyone.
internet
I'll
has
share.
little bit of problem with
Not
my
an
phone.
issue. I'll share it with you all.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Yeah. So before decorators, we discussed the concept of generators.
Okay.
Now, generators are basically functions which returns a generator object, and generator functions are used to retain the previous state of an object. Okay, what I mean by this is,
Can you please slow down because I couldn't able to cope up this one.
okay, I'm sorry. Actually, it would be better if you go through the course video once, because anyway, we had 1 hour session today because only 3 topics were there. So
Okay.
what you can do is go through the recorded session.
Okay.
If
So
you
where
are
can I
not,
get the
I will share it. I'll share it through the YouTube channel. I'll share the link.
Okay.
And we'll upload it
Okay.
on YouTube, and then I'll share the link with you.
Okay.
So, and if you're not able to get it, we can schedule a session. It'll just take half an hour. So after that, we can schedule a session, and
Okay.
we can discuss it if that's a problem for you. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
It should be clear because there were examples and everything, so it should be clear. If at all you have any difficulty, just let Mitesh know. I'll also convey the message to him that if there
Okay.
is a problem, he can arrange a half an hour session someday. Maybe if you're available on weekdays as well for half an hour sometime,
Okay.
arrange the session then.
Okay. No problem.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'll say, it might take a little time to upload the videos on YouTube because it will be a long file. So
Okay.
once it's done, we'll send you the link via mail.
Okay. No problem.